Emily. This is our last virtual, you guys. This is it. And in the background, I have my lovely teammate, Jessica Patton. She's going to be dropping some links for me. So again, welcome. Today, in our final session together, we're going to explore self-reflection. I'm going to give you that networking time and then review just a couple of upcoming topics and then development opportunities, which there's not much left. You know, it's almost May. We're going to do that by practicing self-reflection through the lens of our mentoring experiences, share some best practices, and then just take a quick peek at the mentor learning track. So our structure for our time together will focus on first your development as a mentor. As I mentioned, today's focus is going to be on some self-reflection. So I'm going to have Patton to drop the link in the chat box for you. I'd like you to take a moment to read this article and then think about something that's resonating with you. And when you come back, please be ready to share something in the chat box. So we'll give about 5 minutes here for you to read it. And I know a lot of you are really busy, but I promise this is really good stuff. So take the moment and give it a solid read here. That is our 5 minutes. So I see a few of you are talking about telling your own story, right? Transforming my own story, designing my future, how you're interpreting those experiences. Elena is amazing, and I really love her work because it does get you to think about, okay, I can think about all of these things that are going wrong, but here's something I want to celebrate that I've really worked hard on this year. And I'm really proud of myself. Kenya, yes, the change is an inevitable part of working in a school system. That is so true, right? I once heard someone say the only thing that's constant is change. Yes, so just knowing that and better preparing ourselves and our direct reports as we get through this and our mentees as they get through the end of their first year is really important. Does anyone care to share? Oh, I'm missing more comments. Let me scroll down here for a minute. Tiffany, this is you. Look at what you didn't accomplish instead of celebrating and accomplished, being intentional and identifying it. Yes. Need to focus more on the positive things. Yeah. Does anybody have a big celebration they'd like to share with us, either in their mentoring or just right now at this point? You can unmute, raise your hand to share. Go ahead, Becky.
Good morning. I recently met with my the deans that I am mentoring, and it was a really great discussion around her reflection on the Glint survey. And I really appreciated, as she was talking about her reflection, that she said that while, you know, sometimes the comments in the Glint survey are difficult to read and, you know, swallow, she said that she really took them as a message to really motivate her to next school year. And so it was nice, you know, that she didn't get beaten down by it, but really was taking it as a way of designing her future. So
yeah, I like that, because those comments can get us sometimes, right, and put us in a terrible place. Rate these positives because you have worked really, really hard this year, and we can get caught up in that negativity since our minds always want to go there. But Becky, thank you for sharing that example. Yep. And Roz, I agree. Great article. That's why I definitely needed to share it with all of you. All right. So let's take a moment now to just read this definition about self-reflection. So go ahead and read that to yourself. And as you're reading, what keywords stick out to you? Go ahead and share those in the chat box. Yes, I'm seeing some processes, growth mindset, intent. Yeah. getting through this is definitely a process, and taking that moment and pausing, right? We're always so busy and on the go. It's really good for us to pause and reflect. Oh gosh, Sarah, it's okay. Glad you could make it. Fire drill on a Friday. Nothing like a good old fire drill. We're just talking about self-reflection here and reading this quote. All right. And just some opportunities, right? Taking that moment to think about how the year has gone. All right, let's consider now why we should self-reflect. Take a moment to read these bullets on the screen. To which of these reasons do you make the biggest connection? We'll just say 1, 2, 3, or 4, and so you don't have to type everything in. Awareness, Robin. Strength and improvement. Direct reports. Oh, we're kind of all over the place. Yeah. Some self-awareness. What else? 4. Tiffany, 1 through 4. Okay. And 3, 1. We have a lot of self-awareness pieces here too, and the positive reflection of strengths and opportunity. Yes. Anyone care to elaborate a little bit more, maybe on the self-awareness, or about number 4, the direct reports reactions to your coaching? Any additional thoughts? Go ahead, Natalie.
I just think self-awareness, because it's for every position, no matter who you are. And I think with the pandemic and all the hardships we've had over the past few years, it's really easy to focus on what we can't control, but what we can control is ourselves. And that's kind of hard when we go through all these traumas. So that's my favorite. That's why.
Thank you. Anyone else care to share with the group or elaborate a little bit more on your choice? Okay. All right. Well, thank you for jotting those in the chat. So John Dewey says, we don't learn from experiences. We actually learn from the reflecting on the experience. So in summary, when we question ourselves about the experiences, that's when we finally begin to make changes. This act of self-reflection moves us from thinking about the experience to actually understanding the experience. So as we approach the end of the school year and our deans approach the end of their first year in leadership, we begin to think about the things that went well in our mentoring and things that we would do differently if the opportunity became available once again. Now it's going to be your time to reflect. In just a moment, Patton's going to place you into a breakout room. And when you return to this room, please be prepared to have at least one person from your group share out. So here are the 3 questions, and we'll drop also a link to the questions in the chat. Oh, she already did. This is why I love my teammate, right? So how has mentoring contributed to your professional growth? How will you apply what you have learned from your mentoring experience to future professional practice? And what have you learned about working with a colleague in a mentoring relationship? Okay, so again, I'm going to be in a breakout room for about 9 minutes. Go ahead and take a moment to think about these questions, and maybe you pick one that your group wants to focus on and have everyone answer. When you come back, be ready to share out. We'll see you soon. Okay, so welcome back, as I've said. Now let's hear from some of you on something either that you want to share yourself from your group, or if somebody said something really awesome and it really resonated with you while you were in there. So let's begin with group 4. Group 4, spokesperson.
I don't remember what group we were.
Okay.
I think it was group 4.
Okay, Tiffany, go
I'm gonna
ahead.
go with it. If I'm not, I'm taking over someone's group. Sorry, but
It's okay. It's all right.
We had a lot of talk around like the keep up that momentum part, in how, you know, you start strong. We were talking about in the mentoring, how you start strong with your mentors, and then as you go, it's just everyone's so busy, and to make that time. to make sure that those meetings are happening, you're touching base with them. But then we also just kind of reflected on how that's the dean role in itself, right? You start in September, October, and you have this, you're looking at data, you have all this momentum, and then as things start popping up, you start losing things. So we talked about just that, the calendarizing of things and how to keep up with that throughout the year. We also started talking about some of the things like the reflection pieces that we have done that will continue to carry us professionally, like the control monster activity. We talked a little bit about that. And even just like the letter we read today, the article you put up, I already printed it out. So that's something I want to share with my team because I feel like all of us are at that point. So I feel like there's just been some things that we have learned and reflected on that we can take through, with mentors if we're mentoring next year and just with our team in general.
Yeah, thank you. All right. Anyone groups 1, 2, or 3? If you can remember your group, or Stacy.
We can talk. This is for group 3.
Okay.
So we were able to kind of cover a little bit about each question, but one of the things that everyone was talking about was just how being a mentor like really takes you back to when you started, and it helps you be, more reflective of all these things that you've done or you've been through, and even reminds you to do some of the things that maybe you're like, oh yeah, that would be good if I kept doing that or started doing that again. So it's a good experience just to be able to reflect personally. Also talked about how, if you have more than one mentee, how different they are. But we all were saying what's really cool is that sometimes it seems like they don't really need us, but like that's because they have really good building support with their team one. And so that's a good thing, but then they still have us like as another layer of support or like a way to kind of come out and maybe chat if it's something that they don't want to just bring to that team one. So sometimes we're like, oh, they're not responding or they're not this, but it's not because, they don't have support, or at least that's what we've experienced. They do have support, but they just like also having us there for times that they don't want to
share with their team, right? They want that outside perspective. Yeah. I think that's a good way to look at it. And I like your positive spin on it. Like, we're still here for them if they need us, but we know that they're also being supported by their leadership team. Excellent. Okay, so we had 3 and possibly 4. So let's get to 1 or 2.
So group 1, we kind of talked about all 3 of them as well, but we had said similar things in the fact of like remembering some of the things that we didn't do that, or we kind of got away from, or even getting deeper into that. Some of our mentors will have questions, and then, we have this baseline of information, but now we're going to get a little deeper and find out a little bit more about it. And then just how, again, it's what we're learning here not only affects our mentors, but just the people we're around in general, and how we can share that beyond, just with the mentees.
Yeah, growing yourself, right? That's part of being a professional and seeking those self-learning and self-growth opportunities. So I like that. And I like that you all are sharing. I will say one thing. If you have a new principal, don't share this with them, because I think they're going to get this article next week. So lock lips. All right. I appreciate everyone taking that time to reflect there and just think about yourself through the lens of mentoring, right? And how it does impact you. So yes, you are helping to grow someone else, but in doing so, you're also growing yourself. All right. So I know we just had a little bit of networking time, but we're going to have a little bit more time together. So as we approach the end of this school year, teens don't know what they don't know, right? We've been experiencing that a lot this year. So in addition to state testing, which many of you are in the thick of right now, we also have Glint, which that survey is about to close, and then you'll have those results that need to be reviewed, evaluations, which I just realized that some of you are finishing those up today. Your ratings are due today. And then they're going to have to be delivered. We also have summer learning preparation, retention conversations, and end of the year celebrations to think about. So when you have all of these tasks and responsibilities, how do you manage it all? how do the deans even know that these items exist, right? Because they don't have a task management worksheet like our principals have. How do they know all these things are coming up? So how can they prepare for them and not feel like this person here, their mind like, oh my gosh. So these topics that I just mentioned actually align with that pulse check that many of you completed regarding time management and also holding those challenging conversations, right? A lot of this requires our time and tricky conversations. So since these two topics came up, time management and challenging conversations, let's focus on these for our networking time today. To further refine our support, let's think about evaluations and retention, because those are kind of big ones and those are a little bit tricky. So take a moment now to review these questions here under time management and challenging conversations. I'll give you about 2 minutes, or give me a thumbs up when you're ready to continue. Virtual. Oh, while you all can probably answer these questions freely, how can you mentor your new dean to make sure that they feel a little bit more comfortable with evaluations and our favorite retention conversations, right? So what mentoring strategies can you use to set new deans up for success? So while you're in this breakout room this time around, I want you to think about some questions and or resources that you could use to support your new dean on these topics. And when you come back, please be prepared with a representative to share out. Click on that so you have the questions, and then we're going to put you in a breakout room and then be ready with the representative. And thanks, Robin. All right. Okay, and let's go ahead and get into those breakout groups. Well, happy Friday joy, right?
Welcome back.
Yeah. All right, I just needed the welcome back part, you know, isn't it? Thanks, Natalie. I appreciate that. All right. Okay, now who is ready to share? Let's start. Maybe we'll start with group 2 this time. All right. Oh, Nikki, is that you?
Yes, I'm ready. I was ready to jump in too. I'm gonna eat my frog and jump in there. So we, with the challenging conversations, what in particular, we talked about both, but with the challenging conversations, one thing that a couple of us had kind of talked about was just doing some role playing or kind of like talking with teammates. So really a lot of collaboration of just even as a thought partner, you know, what is that challenging conversation looking like, or thinking, you know, how are we thinking about approaching it, getting feedback from them too. One really kind of neat takeaway that I had from my group that I really like, and I would like to do with our team more, was doing some more like team one observations to just have kind of that collaboration too of like, what are you seeing? What am I seeing? So just, I think a lot of collaboration prior to that and going into those conversations. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that role play is so important. And I know people feel like awkward sometimes, but it really helps to set you up for success, because the person you're role playing with could go both ways. It could go the way you want it to go, and it could go like, ooh, this is a little bit tricky, but then they can help you navigate through that so that you're more prepared. So yeah, I love that idea. All right, let's go to group 1.
That's me.
All right.
So we talked a lot about the challenging conversations and talking about getting ready for delivering evaluations. And a lot of what we talked about was like that preemptive planning of areas that you know you might have to provide some evidence to your direct reports about why you rated them the way that you did. And then we also talked about how we really use that self-evaluation to prepare for those things. So just kind of comparing, where you think they are versus where they had rated themselves, and then getting yourself ready to know some things that some reasons why you did that with evidence from observations or just like throughout the year, so that you have, so you're ready to have that conversation and it's not a surprise, and also providing a draft eval to your direct reports beforehand, so they have time and it's not like an emotional reaction, and maybe they have more time to digest and then come prepared with like what they think too.
Wow, a couple of good practices there. That self-reflection to prepare you as the person who's delivering it, and then also possibly a draft. I like those ideas. Thank you. All right. Group 3.
All right, good morning. We discussed a lot about processes as well, and just the difference between with retention, having it being organized, and
Yeah.
where some schools might really use their IAT process to focus on retention. So those conversations have been already kind of happening throughout the year.
Mhm.
But just being organized with that and having that follow through and step by step, so it's not it's not unknown that this is possibly happening.
Right.
We also talked about with evaluations, just having that running record. I know I shared mostly just about professional accountabilities and having calendarizing once a month to make sure you're adding to your professional accountabilities list for evidence that you do throughout the year, because it comes up at the end of the year like, oh my gosh, I know I've done things, but what have I done?
Right.
And just making that kind of keeping that at the forefront so that when you do get this, you already have a list of ideas ready to go. So that I know that's my personal goal for next year because I do it to
Yeah.
myself every year. And I plan on doing that and talking that with my team, but just
Yeah.
calendarizing and making that a priority as well.
Right. And sharing, with your new dean, if they did not prioritize and calendarize this year, how they can change that for next year, right? And letting them know it's
Absolutely.
okay. I'm an experienced dean and I don't even have this perfect sometimes, right? So yeah, I like that. And the professional accountabilities, those do sneak up on you because you're talking about the classroom framework all year. So that's really important. Thank you for sharing that, Robin. All right, group 4. Last group.
I can talk.
Okay, thanks, Natalie.
We just we said a lot of things that have already been shared, but just with making sure they're prepared to handle when there's differing of opinions and preparing for when the self-evaluations don't match the actual rating, and pre-planning those conversations and being prepared how you're going to use reflective and directive questioning to get through that. And then just on time management, I know that was a big struggle for my mentee this year. So using the Outlook calendar was very overwhelming to her. So I'm blessed that she's in my building. So on Fridays, we meet for 20 minutes and we do our Outlook for the next week. So that way she can focus on the big rock items because she was getting lost, as every new dean does, and returning deans in like the busyness. So So we do that, and that's really helped. And yeah, but a lot of things just about using the classroom framework, the interactive framework regularly, and making sure there's no surprises, or else that can, like, if you haven't talked to them about it, you shouldn't put it in their evaluation because that erodes trust. So.
Well, I like that. That's very important. We definitely, I know in their first year as dean, they talk a lot about trust busters and trust builders, and that is definitely a buster if you have not talked about it and it's showing up in their evaluation. That will not be a conversation that goes well. Well, thank you to all of the groups. We're at our last part of our meeting, which is just to talk about upcoming topics. By now, I think you're all pretty familiar with this mentor learning track. Our new deans do have a meeting next week. This was our last mentor meeting, but I want you to take a moment now to pop in over and look at the mentor learning track. And let me get that link. There we go. There's the link. So in May, you can see on the mentor learning track, you just have your final meeting, and you'll be getting an email. It will not come up in the follow-up. It will come after, just with an end of the year survey. And please take that to really let me know what went well for you, what areas we can grow in our mentoring program. And then also what I forgot to share earlier is that we had some reflection questions for ourselves, but the great Elena Aguilar has a whole sheet of reflection questions, and you can see those in April on the mentor learning track. Just some things for you to think about as you get into this year, summertime, and then preparing for next year. So that might also be something that you can do with your mentee, or things that you want to bring up with your leadership team at your school. And so with that, we get into our launch. A good mentor offers directions and driving tips from the back seat, but you still have to drive the car. And that's from Michael Johnson. So as we come to the end of our 22-23 school year, remember that our new deans are driving. You're the one that's in the back seat. You can't be in two places at once. So thank you in this case for being a backseat driver, right? Because you don't often get complimented for that. But helping them gain the confidence that they need to know that they are on the right path forward. And I appreciate your time today. I know you all have a lot of things going on at your buildings, and I will be sending a follow-up email for your reference. I hope that you have a great weekend.